Good afternoon, and thank you for being here with us in the Spanish Pavilion in this Energy Day. Now we have a very interesting session where we will stay for 18 minutes to talk about and discuss one pillar of carbonization, which is the industrial sector. I think it's good to talk about what are the opportunities and possibilities around this important sector. In all of them have huge potential, and today we will have the opportunity to see examples, clear examples with two important companies in different sectors, and also we will have two very important panels to discuss about what are the benefits, how to cooperate between the public and private sector, and how we can enable this transformation. I think that the nexus between energy and the industry is crucial, and it's crucial also in the path to carbon neutrality. We all know that this is part of the answer. We have been talking about this open strategic autonomy and how we need to build capabilities for this big transformation we want to deliver, and we are delivering now. And at the same time, the industrial activities represent a big hole in terms of difficult to abate sectors, and we need to look for response. I think both together deliver the adequate opportunities. So I would like to share with you that all the global trends in investment have been changing in the past years, where if we think about 10 years ago, most of the investment when we think about clean was renewable, yes, wind, solar, those important sectors. But now things are completely different. When we talk about investment in clean technologies, we are talking about heat pumps, efficiency, we are also talking about storage, renewable hydrogen. So the world is much bigger and the answers are much bigger. It's important that we are here at the COP28, and one of the main contribution that we expect from the energy sector is that all of us can reach a global agreement that we need to multiply by 3 renewables from now to 2030 and by 2 in terms of energy efficiency. I think we can do it. We have everything that we need to make it happen. And of course, when we think about an industry, they have a key role in this figure. You can see that it depends, depending on the industry, many things can be delivered, electrification, more renewables, heat plants, many things can be done. And I'm sure that part of these tripling and doubling objectives will be delivered through these industries that are very active in this transition process. But you also have good news. I always love to see this abatement curves, where we can see that some of the actions and measures that needs to take place, like energy efficiency, are cost efficient right now. Nowadays, today, we can develop those actions without any additional funding. And there are other ones that will be pretty soon, because we need to invest in this innovation, and all depends in many things and many elements, and also depends on the cost of CO2. And I always want to say that this transition is built with many elements, but also it's full of opportunities. And that word needs to be more used in these debates, because energy transition means opportunities in the case of Spain, but globally as well. You can see in terms of employment, this report was just launched 2 weeks ago by the International Energy Agency. So the net employment that you can see in this figure, it's amazing. So let's do it, and let's work together to make it real. And as you know, European Union understands the nexus between energy and industry. So we changed the policy, the mind. We always think about the Green Deal as a way of developing these climate objectives. But now it's bigger. It's a way of bringing economic prosperity and a way of producing the adequate industrial ecosystem. That is the new industrial Green Deal, approved in 2023 in February, where we think about some pieces, regulatory pieces like macro reform, like Critical Raw Materials Act, and in relation to this decarbonisation, it's very important that Net Zero Industrial Act. And I would like to start with two amazing examples. One delivered by an energy company like Cepsa, and I have the pleasure to have here with us Martin Witzler. Thank you very much. Hope I pronounce well your name. My name is also difficult. And then we will have Sonia Zimmer. Okay, more or less. So both will bring concrete examples that we will see and we can see now in our country, in Spain. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the 3 next sessions on industrial decarbonization. Thanks.
Many thanks, Sarah. Awesome, I think is the more or less the correct Scandinavian pronunciation. I've been practicing for weeks. It's great to be here at the Spanish Pavilion to celebrate Spain Energy Day, because if we put energy, Spain, and the next 5 years into one sentence, it really is about the opportunity to become an energy transition superpower. A superpower, not incremental progress, let's do a bit more, to turn the country into an energy transition superpower. And if you think about it, Spain has for a long time already been a superpower in renewables. There's fantastic companies in that space, companies like Iberdrola, Acciona, Solaria, and many others are known way beyond Spain as champions of renewable electricity. And now with tripling renewable electricity, there'll be nowhere to go. Electricity will be renewable in any place you go in Spain, and hopefully also in the rest of Europe as the connections get built. But some of those extra gigawatts will go to an even more exciting opportunity, which is about Spain investing in a big way and becoming the European champion in green molecules. Green molecules, green hydrogen, green methanol, green ammonia, require a lot of renewable power. So that if that industry becomes as big as it will stand on the shoulders of those who have developed renewables in Spain. And it will be a big customer of those who develop renewables in Spain, buying the power and then converting it through electrolysis into green hydrogen, and then through known chemical processes into green methanol and green ammonia. And what that means for Spain, first of all, is that it will be able to decarbonize the difficult to decarbonize sectors. Those sectors that cannot be decarbonized by electricity, by renewable electricity, heavy industry, heavy transport, aviation, these type of industries simply need a molecule to get around. They cannot use an electron. And having this substantial world-class green molecules base in the south of Spain will give Spain the opportunity to decarbonize its industry. It will also give Spain the opportunity to export energy more easily to the rest of Europe. You no longer need high voltage power lines. You can simply put the green ammonia into a ship and ship it to Rotterdam, which is exactly what we are planning to do. So instead of decades as an energy importer, Spain has the opportunity to turn itself into an energy exporter, which will provide jobs, economic development, but also political relevance. You can see here today just how politically relevant the UAE has become, being a major energy exporter and producer, from being a little town in the desert. But then the third opportunity, and that I think is the one that is even more exciting, is although of course we will start by bringing the energy to where the industry is, which is mostly in Northern Europe, in Germany, in the Netherlands, in North France. Over time, we will work together with the government and with the suppliers to bring the industry to where the cheap energy is, which will be in Spain. So the opportunity to eventually not just export energy, but also import industry and re-industrialize Spain, or further industrialize Spain, is all in our hands as we pursue these opportunities. Cepsa is committed to playing a leading role in getting that done, has earmarked 8 billion euros to invest almost entirely in Spain, in this transition, in this revolution between now and the end of the decade, and will champion the formation, the construction of that green molecule base in the south of Spain. Last week, Friday, we were very honored to be joined by President Sanchez and by the CEO of Maersk C2X to announce an element of that vision, which is to create a green methanol plant in Huelva as part of our green hydrogen valley in Andalusia, which will particularly focus on decarbonizing maritime transport. So shipping, Spain is a large bunkering hub, a lot of ships that go through the Gibraltar Straits, get their fuel, buy their fuel in Spain, and today they buy heavy fuel oil. And that's already, if you listen to heavy fuel oil, that doesn't sound very green, and I can promise you it's not. It's very, very high carbon and air pollutive. So a plant in Huelva that will produce totally green, totally decarbonized, 0% air pollution, green methanol to serve the shipping industry will not only be a good investment for Cepsa, will not only bring jobs to Spain and to Andalusia and get us further on the map of the energy transition, but it will also really help reduce the pollution, not just the CO2 emissions, but also the air pollution in our ports and in ports around the world. It's a very exciting announcement. A lot of money is involved, but to me what is more, a lot of vision is involved. And that vision will come from the combination, as it has to be in the energy transition, between the industry, the energy industry, the consuming industry, in this case Maersk and other shipping industries, and the various layers of government, federal, Andalusia and local, working very closely together, because this is not easy, ladies and gentlemen. It's very easy to build a new refinery and supply into the world, because those value chains exist, those logistics exist. To do something totally novel is complicated, and the level of cooperation between customers, suppliers and government at all levels has been unprecedented to get this to the announcement last week Friday, and will even have to be more deep to get this project to fruition, to produce green maritime fuels, the biggest plant in Europe in the south of Spain in 2028. That's what we've announced. We're very pleased to have done so, and it's obviously totally consistent, not just with our strategy, but what we think is the future for Spain and the most exciting project in the 2020s. So thank you for your attention. I will go to my colleague here. I never expected to not represent the Dutch company on the podium when I was at the Spanish event. That's how life goes, but Heineken, obviously a popular product and a company close to heart.
Heineken and of course Cruz Campo as well in Spain, right? I'm a huge fan, I have to say. So firstly, thank you so much for having me. Absolutely delighted to be here. I'm going to, in the next 5 minutes or so, give you a sense of how our Spanish business is bringing our sustainability strategy to life. And to start with a little bit of context. So sustainability isn't new to Heineken. It's something we've been working on for many, many years. In 2021, we launched our updated sustainability strategy, which we call Brew a Better World. And it has 3 pillars: environment, social, and responsible consumption. And what I'm going to talk you through now is what our fantastic Spanish team is doing to really say, where do we focus, where do we prioritize? So they really grabbed those ambitions and they came out with their own approach, which they called Disadamente. Apologies for the pronunciation there on my part, thank you very much. And they decided to focus on a number of areas. Seeing as we are at COP28, I'm delighted to say they decided to take our ambition of net zero in our productions, and they want to deliver that by the end of 2025, which is 5 years before our corporate commitment. They also decided that they want to reduce emissions from scope 3, so outside of our value chain, much more complex, and to do that by the end of 2025 as well. Huge ambition over there. Now, carbon obviously is what we're here to talk about, but we also need to talk about the broader environmental agenda, because we absolutely see this as integrated to how do we deliver. And water is very important to us as Heineken. If you don't have water, you don't have beer. So we do have targets around water. So we have a target around water efficiency for our breweries, and it's higher for sites that are in water-stressed areas. And we also have a target, which for me is really important, which is to be fully water balanced in those sites that are water-stressed, which basically means not just for us, but looking at the catchment and for the wider users as well. And that's about giving back more water than we use in our products. And in Spain, we have a fantastic project in the Doñana National Park, which is around wetland restoration and protecting a really unique environment for migratory birds. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We're working with the local government, and really it's about all these different measures we can take. The next piece is around circularity. Now, we do have a target to send no waste to landfill from our production, but it's also about maximizing the circularity from our packaging. And this also links to our delivery of our carbon targets. So a lot of what we do in terms of recycled content and reuse lowers our carbon footprint. And finally, on the social side, this is also about people and how do we work with people. So we have a foundation, the Fundación Cruzcampo, which is really about working with young people who are at a distance from the employment market, people from disadvantaged backgrounds, and they get trained up in the foundation with skills that can be used in bars and restaurants. And I had the pleasure of being in Seville last year, and the success rate's amazing. So 98% of people who go through the foundation actually have employment at the end of it. So that's some of the targets that we set, but as you know, this is about delivery. It's about what actions are we really taking to meet the net zero targets. And as you can see, it's a journey. Hate that word, but it is a journey. And it's a combination of things that we have to do. The first is around energy efficiency. So how do we use as little energy as possible? And the second is, how do we replace fossil fuels with renewable sources? And that's where we've had huge success. So we have a power purchase agreement with Iberdrola to source renewable electricity. For us as Heineken, just to give you a sense, our energy mix is roughly a third is electricity, 2/3 is thermal heat. The second is much, much harder for us. And on thermal heat, we have a range of measures, from a biomass plant in places like Jaén to biogas and thermal solar in Seville. So it is really about a suite of measures that's going to help us decarbonize. But what's really important for us is it's not just our operations. Those Scope 3 emissions I talked about are really key. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples to bring that to life. So we are working with a consortium called Fertibria, which is all about how do we decarbonize the fertilizer inputs. And it's a European-wide consortium. We're also looking to electrify last mile delivery. So in places like Madrid, Seville, Cadiz, and Cordoba, you can now see electric vehicles with Heineken on the sides, which is how we deliver our product to our customers. And we've set up a platform which consumers and customers can use to access renewable energy in an easy and efficient way. So those are just some of the measures, and it can all sound quite theoretical, so I wanted to show you a picture. So a year ago, I stood in this empty field in Seville, and our wonderful corporate affairs director, Carmen, said, this is where we're going to build our thermal solar plant. Roll forward a year, and this got inaugurated by President Sanchez just a couple of months ago. And it's the largest thermal solar plant in Europe, and we've done it in partnership with ENGIE. And it's reduced our use of fossil gas by 60%. It's required a 20 million euro investment, and it's 8 football fields of solar panels. Absolutely phenomenal, and it's taken real innovation and technology to be able to get there. But these things don't just happen. It takes a lot of hard work and a lot of commitment, and we have a fabulous team in Spain. And the kind of 3 principles they've worked to is firstly coherence. How do we look at this not just for our operations, but across our value chain? Our emissions in our value chain are 10 times what we have in our operations, so we have to look at that as well. The second has been very much about partnership. Given the magnitude of the issues that we're looking at, we cannot sort these issues on our own. So it's about partnering with local government, central government, with NGOs, suppliers, our customers, to really have this integrated system to develop systemic solutions. And finally, it all started with the ambition. So by Spain setting the ambition that they wanted to make their net zero targets 5 years early, it's really driven the engine internally. And through fantastic collaboration and cross-functional working, this isn't done by the sustainability team, it's done by procurement and supply chain and finance and sustainability and corporate affairs, all working together to really have real actions that help us brew a better world. So we're happy with the progress. There's a lot more for us to do, which is why we're delighted to be part of this conversation and looking forward to learning from others as well. So thank you.
So thank you very, very much, Sonia and Martin, 2 very excellent examples, not just of ambition, not just of plans, but of real-world deployment, delivery of specific plans, specific measures to make those ambitions reality. So thank you very much for joining us today. And so if Lara Lázaro, Senior Researcher of Real Instituto Elcano, can join us on stage for the second of the 3 sessions in this decarbonisation in industry block. As I said, this panel moderated by Lara. Thank you very much.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. It's a pleasure for me to moderate this first panel on energy and industry decarbonisation, renewables and hydrogen. As you know, industry is 24% of greenhouse gas emissions, according to the IPCC's 6th assessment report. So without action in the industry sector, there is no way we're going to meet our climate commitments. Spain is well placed to tackle this challenge, both for renewables and renewable hydrogen and biogas, and also through other storage technologies. The European in particular and Spain have the resources, have the knowledge, and also have something that is key, which are the plans. Spain's NECP, as you probably know, is quite ambitious in terms of renewables, including wind, solar, storage capacity, self-consumption, and this is key in order to get to where we need to be. The PERTE is 1.5 billion euros. It's mobilized 2.8 billion euros in private capital, and we are here to talk about not only the good things, but also the challenges. We've seen 2 excellent examples, but we need to also learn from the things that have been hard. So Sonia has mentioned them very briefly, but I would like to ask our excellent panel of speakers to address challenges, cases of success, scalability, and also how you cooperate, to go a bit deeper into how you cooperate with local partners, with investors, with local governments, with national governments. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers in the order in which they will intervene. Sonia You've heard Sonia before, but I think it's important for all of you to know that she's Senior Director for Global Sustainability at Heineken. She's presented the Brew a Better World strategy. She's got 2 decades of experience working in sustainability. Prior to Heineken, she worked for Reckitt, and she also worked for different consultancies, Accenture, PwC, Detnorska Veritas, and she's very active, as you've seen from her previous presentation, on external interaction and engagement with investors, suppliers, NGOs, and industry bodies. David Redoli Morchon, he's Director of Institutional Relations at Solaria. He holds a BA in Sociology from University of Salamanca. He's also studied at Georgetown and Complutense University. And he's also been an advisor to the first VP in Spain and Chief of Cabinet for the Nuclear Security Council. Carlos Barraza, he joined TEPSA in 2022 as Executive Vice President of Commercial and Clean Energies. Prior to that, you were Executive Vice President of BP for Spain, and you have widespread experience in energy and in leading international teams and in growth of businesses. And Luis Cabrera, you're President of ANESE, Asociación Nacional de Empresas de Servicios Energéticos. You're also the Director of ESG at G Advisory, which is the Sustainability and Energy Division at Garrigues. And you've also done something that I think is absolutely critical, which is heading the Smart Cities division at Group ACS. You are an agriculture engineer from Polytechnic University, and also, to round that up, an MSc in MA in Social Anthropology and Cultural Anthropology by Open University. So without further ado, Sonia, please, can you help us dig a little bit deeper into the challenges first, solutions, perhaps from a global perspective, because you've dwelled into the Spanish case a bit more, but that global perspective, and then collaboration with society, local governments, etc. Sonia.
No, thank you so much. And sorry, you get to hear my voice twice in one go, which is more than anyone needs. But yeah, and I'm really pleased we're talking about challenges, because I think a lot of the time when we talk about decarbonisation, there's a sense of, why don't we just do it? It's because it's not easy. Very frankly, it's really not easy. And some of the challenges that we've seen very transparently is, firstly, for us, I mentioned this a bit before, we use a combination of thermal heat and electricity. Accessing renewable energy to the scale that we need it for thermal is really difficult. The solutions do not exist at the scale that we need it globally everywhere that we have. What you heard about in terms of what we're actually doing in Spain, the reason we're so excited about it is because we managed to crack it, and we managed to harness solar for an application that's so wide. So actually being able to scale renewable energy to the extent that we want it is one significant challenge. The second is having enabling policies in place which actually support us getting access to renewables. And here I will talk about our global picture a little bit more. So at the start of the year, we looked at where do we have issues, very frankly. And we found that in 19 countries where we operate, we cannot have a power purchase agreement, which means one of the vehicles to access renewables is super tricky for us. So that's a real issue. And when you combine it with the fact that you don't have infrastructure and grid systems that allow us to access that, it's really difficult in some of our geographies to access. And the last and final one is, I talked about the importance of partnership, but actually finding the partners is not easy. It can take a real effort in terms of actually getting there. So let's talk a bit about the solutions. What kinds of things have we done? The first is around innovation and technology, and recognizing that what works in one place won't work in another. So we have thermal solar in Spain, but actually in Cambodia we have biomass. Very different types of technology which suit the local context. And we've only been able to source that by working with partners. So that bit of the third piece as well in terms of collaboration. We wouldn't have been able to have the plant, frankly, in Spain if it wasn't for ENGIE's technical brilliance to try and figure out how do we source it at the scale that we need it. And yeah, if I look at all those three things together and the kind of solutions that we need, partnerships is absolutely one vehicle, but for us, lobbying and advocacy is really important as well. So where the enabling policies don't exist, we want to work with other partners, other companies, to have the right conversations with governments about how do we make it happen. And it's one of the reasons we're really excited about the agreement to triple use of renewable energy, because that's going to really drive the markets. It's going to drive the policy, it's going to drive the regulation, and hopefully it will drive the infrastructure development as well that we really need. And I think you have got a bit of a juggle when you've got demand and supply. We provide the demand signals that this is what we're after, and I think the supply will come through as well in terms of technology, in terms of the partnerships that we really need to make it happen as well. Now, I've spoken for a fair bit, so the last piece in terms of collaboration, why don't I touch on that a bit more and build off what some of the others have said?
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So, access to renewable sources, transaction cost in getting to the right partners, tailor-made solutions, and support for the trebling of renewables. So that gives me an excellent entry point to David. You're going to talk to us about Garoña and how nuclear power has been substituted by renewables, by solar.
Exactly.
David.
Among many other things. Thanks a lot for your kindness, and thanks a lot to the Spanish government for organizing these activities. Well, regarding the three main challenges that we face are very clear. The first one is permitting. The permitting for renewable firms has become a nightmare, a real nightmare for serious renewable promoters, and a boon for speculators. Sometimes we must wait for more than 4 years before we go through the whole authorization process, and that's like crazy. From our point of view, this is a huge problem that we know that public administration is trying to fix up, but we have to go faster in finding the solution. We shouldn't wait for more than 6 months in order to get permissions. There is no way we can reach the necessary amount of solar and wind megawatts that we need before 2030 if we have to wait for years and years in order to get administrative licensing. So this is something we must do at a European level. So Europe is living a dramatic situation, and therefore we need dramatic and quick responses, not bureaucratic ones. I will also speak about social licensing. Solar plants occupy land, yes, indeed, and they have more environmental and landscape impacts. We cannot deny that. That is the reason why we really are focused on civil society organizations and public administrations to increase the dialogue and the cooperation with them. But we should avoid to have a negative view of our industry, because this industry is part of the solution, not of the problem. We should not forget that it does not exist any industrial energy plant with no externalities. It doesn't exist. So we have to assume the opportunity cost. We firmly believe that our opportunity cost can be transformed into social and economic opportunities for those areas in which we are located. So determine sustainability with limited environmental impact that will be acceptable for solar power plants. And finally, the third challenge we face, it's disproportionate taxes. We don't talk so much about this, but if you want to have a fast, quick, a massive ecologic and energy transition, you need to make incentive and to have high economic returns for those private firms that are having investments in the energy transition. If you have disproportionate taxes on these firms, you will slow down the energy transition. So that's why we think that we should avoid a regulatory tsunami, what we call a regulatory tsunami, which is like to have so many taxations and so many new laws and new regulations that sometimes make difficult to have the regulatory stability that we need in order to widespread the whole industrial processes. And this is the moment where I want to talk about one of the most successful processes we are leading in Spain, at least my company, Solaria. I'm going to talk about what we are doing in the province of Burgos, in northern Spain, in a region which is impacted by demographic problems. We are talking about Garoña, which is a very, very small place in northern Spain. And Solaria is replacing 466 megawatts of Garoña's nuclear power plant for 600 megawatts of photovoltaic solar energy. And we are investing 360 million euros in that place. to install a solar field that will produce electricity equivalent to the annual consumption of the entire province of Burgos, enough to supply about 3,000 homes. As you can imagine, this is not just an entrepreneurial project, this is a country project, because we are substituting an old technology, like the nuclear one, for a future technology which is solar. The energizing effect that this project will have on the economy of the region is huge. Income for town councils and local entities exceeds 100 million euros, including licenses, taxes, and land rental. The photovoltaic installation in Gareña will prevent the emission into the atmosphere of 2,085 tons of carbon dioxide per year, equivalent to the emission of 1,085,000 cars. That's huge. And this is one of the biggest solar projects in Spain. We are very proud about this project, and I think that Spain should be very proud of this example of energy substitution, quitting uranium. We don't have uranium in Spain, so we are quitting uranium, and we are embracing solar radiation. And finally, regarding your last question, the role of cooperation, we firmly believe in the dialogue with public sector. We need it. Private-public cooperation is the key element for a successful energy transition. There is no way you can do it in a such regulated industry like us. Companies like Cepsa, like Iberdrola, like Endesa, like Solaria are leading the energy transition. They need regulatory stability, they need a lot of interlocution, and they need a lot of conversation with public and with public sector. And we do it, and also with civil society. These two legs, public sector and civil society, are taken into account for the bigger majors, the bigger players in the energy transition in Spain. So since we depend on political decisions, our main request is that we need to find the political decisions that make us to go fast and bigger for bringing up the solutions that we need for decarbonization process in our society. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'll just prod you a little bit, because you said, permitting takes 4 years, we can bring it down to 4 months. So I was just thinking about the solution that was given before, that digitalization of permitting, and whether, you would see this as a step forward and something that, could be applicable also, not only to the wind sector, which we saw before, but also
Absolutely.
to the solar sector.
We are sharing the same problems.
And I'm going to keep the cooperation question open for a last round, because I want to prod you as well on the initiatives that you have a bit more with the communities.
Do you want now or later?
No, later.
Okay, I'll go for later.
And
If you want now, I'll do it right now.
I know. And as for your idea, the idea of social license and the interaction with civil society organizations, I would also like all of you to think about the expansion of just energy transition strategies to encompass not only the phase out of fossil fuels, but also the phasing of renewables. And there are different examples of different companies of how you're engaging with society. There are also examples in France. So I think that's very important. The idea of incentives. Why not go for the carrots rather than the sticks? You call it regulatory tsunami. I've also heard it called regulatory inflation. And from a more academic perspective, Sebastian Obertor talks about regulatory thickening in the EU.
I like the concept.
Yeah.
I'm going to copy it.
So, Carlos, your turn, please. Take us away with...
Well, thank you, Lara, for having us here. Let me frame first what we are doing in Cepsa, because not sure everyone is aware of that. Martin presented an example of one of the things we are doing, production of e-methanol. But in reality, our strategy is a significant transformation. So Cepsa is a nearly 100-year-old company, mostly oil and chemicals, producing conventional fuels. We've been doing that for 100 years, supplying heavy industry, heavy transport. And less than 18 months ago, we gave ourselves a challenge to become a leader in the energy transition by leading the supply of remolecules, as Martin referred to, that is effectively renewable fuels. So we are going to replace about 60% of our earnings from conventional fuels into renewable fuels in just 6 years. Just hold that in your mind. So for 100 years, we've been supplying conventional fuels, and in 6-7 years, we are going to transform 60% of our earnings into renewable fuels. So a significant transformation. We are going to do that by mostly developing renewable fuels of biological origin. That is going to be a significant investment, our largest project in Southern Europe. And then we also announced 2 gigawatt hydrogen capacity that will help us deliver the methanol and ammonia that you've seen in the announcements, right? So that's what we are gonna. That's what we've set ourselves to deliver in the next 6-7 years. So definitely not an easy task at many levels. But I'm going to share a little bit of what are the challenges that, as an industry, not only for CEPSA, we are facing. There are many, but I'm going to touch on 3. And David mentioned regulatory, so probably going to be quite brief on that. But just an important message: the biggest impact CEPSA can make to decarbonization is not decarbonizing our operations. Our scope 1 and 2 are just 1/10 of the total impact. So for us, the biggest impact is delivering those renewable fuels that help us address the hard-to-abate, difficult-to-electrify applications. To me, one of the biggest challenges that we face in building a green molecules industry is finding the customers, the famous and elusive off-takers. Right? Most of the projects across Europe are trying to find customers. But you've seen an example of one of significant customers around the world, Maersk, and you've seen CEPSA announcing others. So for us, the logic was quite simple. We didn't want to build something that didn't have a real demand, didn't have customers willing to pay for. And reality is there are customers today, Heineken just mentioned one of those, that are willing to pay for green molecules, right? And there is a very famous saying, William Gibson, on future is here, is simply unevenly distributed. So we have customers today who are willing to pay for green molecules. We need to find them, right? What a simple thing. But we've been obsessed with the supply side, with the technology, and forgotten that the basic thing that you need to do to create a business is find customers that are willing to pay for your product. So we see today fertilizers, chemicals being willing to pay for it, particularly if it goes to consumer goods and food and beverage. And we see a demand in Northern Europe that is growing way ahead of what we see in the rest of Europe. So what we've done is develop those projects that help us serve those customers that are willing to use our green molecules today as we scale up those projects. Second thing is asking those customers what they need from you, right? Just that you want to be a customer long term. And what they want, surprise, surprise, is lowest possible cost. And that means that we cannot run small pilot projects, nice demonstration, in a retail side. We need large-scale, significant investment. So Martin has referred to 8 billion. Again, hold that number in your mind. There's a massive investment, to deploy in a very short time. And we are doing that because we believe that only by building scale, we can supply, the green molecules at the cost our customers in the future are willing to pay. Put that together with the resources in Southern Europe, lowest cost of renewable energy, and the synergies of building these assets together with our traditional legacy assets, and you've got a winning formula. So, to me, that is a key anchor of the success of our project. Now, there is something else that I think we are going to talk about. That is cooperation. So, to me, the energy transition is a team sport. We need to do this together. I'm not sure if you've paid attention, but Maersk is an existing customer of CEPSA, as it is of many other energy companies. But we haven't announced a supply agreement. We've announced a joint investment in a business. And that, to me, is a very different way of collaborating in the energy transition. That means that we are incorporating, that we are welcoming, that we are joining partners, both upstream and downstream, that are willing to share risk with us, that are willing to make decisions jointly. And that's a very different approach from how the energy industry has traditionally transacted. right? So we are no longer moving into a supply agreements. We are incorporating these partners. I've got a friend that says cooperation is like a flock of starlings. You know, you've seen all the internet, those mesmerizing images. Sometimes it feels more like an elephant stampede, but definitely cooperation is needed, and it's a very different way of relating between partners. David has mentioned regulations, so I'm not going to touch on that. For us, it's critical to have an agile, both regulatory framework, particularly for hydrogen and its derivatives, but also permitting that is critical for everything we are doing. And then I'm going to touch on resources. And to me, resources, I think that we've discussed in previous panels about grid and grid access. We've discussed Spain, obviously water is important, but I'm going to touch on something that I haven't heard this week here. That is human resources, is the workforce of the future, is qualified labor. CEPSA, with this investment, has announced employment for about 10,000 people, both direct and indirect, in Andalusia. That's a massive number. But we need to train those generations, because right now we don't have any credible plans to, take us there. And if we believe, and I believe, this is like a renaissance of humanity, right? So if we transform the energy system, it's going to require very different skills. We need to start right now, to change, education plans, vocational education institutes. We need to really ramp up the training and the upskilling of the wider society to deliver those challenges.
Thank you very much. And yes, upskilling and reskilling is absolutely crucial. Many other speakers have mentioned it. You've mentioned agile regulation and permitting, and I've heard a little bit less from you about predictable regulation, which is a change from perhaps other gatherings, which is welcome, I guess. So the future is here. It is just unevenly distributed. I love that sentence. I'm going to take that one away. And the cooperation as an energy team sport, I think this is absolutely crucial as well. So without further ado, Luis, all yours.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Thank you very much for your invitation on behalf of ANESE. I'm very happy that, additionally, that you have mentioned, because my first topic is human resources. Yes, I think it's the big challenge we are facing, because this is an open conversation we have in ANESE with our associates, that we are not sure we have enough hands to deploy the full agenda we are facing, we have in front in the next 7 years. It doesn't matter if we are speaking about engineers or electricians or mechanicals, even experts in sustainable finance, because we are hiring a lot of people, but all our companies has open positions that they are not able to cover. So this is a reflection we need to have, and we can be connected with the academic world in order to be more focused on the business, because for example, we are involving in our team, but it's the same case in other companies, some engineers that they don't know nothing about carbon footprint, for example. They know what CO2 is after combustion, what is production, a molecule of CO2, but they don't know the concept of carbon footprint. And this is incredible, because we need a lot of technicians in order to get involved in our companies, and especially in the sustainable finance, they need to understand what taxonomy is, or sustainable finance disclosure regulation. And when you are hiring some profile from financial, academic, or schools, they don't know nothing about this. Yeah. The majority of them, they don't know nothing about this. So it's, for us, one of the challenges we are facing. The second one is about the decision makers. And here, as it's an open conversation as well, and we are sharing in other forums and in other conferences, that we can understand that a decision maker wait 1 more year or 2 more years in order to decide if they are going to deploy a PV installation in the roof of an industrial or a logistic, or if they are going to deploy even a LED lighting system in 2023 or in 2024. No, you need to push the button right now, because we are fighting and we are in a sprint, in a right of a sprint from now to the to the following 7 years. So this is something about we need to focus as well. And the third one is as well for us the elephant into the room, that is the scope 3. Is the scope 3. We know the scope 3 is here. We need to decarbonize. But we don't know what our scope 3 is. We are not measuring really the scope 3. Not the majority. Some of the relevant companies you are doing, you have a strategy, but the majority of the companies don't have a strategy about the scope 3, because even they don't know what the scope 3 is. So how we are going to be able to fight against something that we don't know? So it's something we are really worried about, and we are trying to push, but we need to train the companies in order they know the scope 3 of the emissions. So our recommendation is on this line. I don't know if you share these challenges, but it's very important, especially in the industrial sector.
So scope 3 emissions, you've given me the challenges. I'm going to push you on
the solutions.
The solutions, yeah, because we are at COP and we want to focus on solutions.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, I don't have the solution, because if not, I would be a guru. No. So and we know the gurus from Al Gore and Greta Thunberg and maybe Bill Gates that has joined us these days. But
okay, so let me rephrase.
Yeah.
Do you have any cases from which we can learn? Maybe, things we've done well, things we can improve?
Yeah, in terms of human resources, the point is that we need to work really together. Not to speak about the collaboration between the private sector and the academic sector, or even the public sector, because we can't wait another education law, for example. We can't wait 4 more years in order to implement all these knowledge into the academic, then to return into the companies. So we need to do this more flexible and feasible finally, because we need it now, right now. So we need to work really together. We need to involve the people from the university in the early step, in order to give this training, but also we need to speak with the professors, because we need a lot of training. We have some here some representatives from the academic institutions that are training to the companies, and we need to get to work more connected in order to have this knowledge into the companies. So far, what we are doing is to turn some other profiles into the sustainability profiles. Has been mentioned, they do not significant harm, but where you study together the impact on terms of climate change, mitigation, adaptation, hydric resources, circular economy, pollution, etc. It's not, you can study all this together, but in some masters or some specialized studies, but we need to implement this in a cross way into the academic world, because we need it, and we need it now. About the decision makers, we know the gurus. The gurus are Al Gore, are Greta Thunberg, are Bill Gates, but we need leaders. The leader is the person who is going to push the button in order to have a short-term decision. This is a leader. And we need it in public sector, in private sector, in academic sector, wherever, because we need it now. In terms of scope 3, we need to measure this now. On next Monday, after your first or your second coffee, please ask your purchase management area in your company to ask your providers what the carbon footprint involving the activities they do with you, what is the scope 3 of the emissions. We need to know it now, right now, in 2024, not in 2 years in our plans. So finally, as a conclusion, we are no longer in a long distance race. We are in a sprint race. Yeah. In a sprint race, because we have big challenges in the next 7 years, even 6.
Thank you. You have managed to focus a lot on the challenges, and I appreciate one suggestion which I think permeates what we can do into the future, which is the dynamic upskilling and reskilling that is transition-led. So how can we have educational stability or educational predictability, which is something that is in addition to regulatory stability and predictability. From gurus to leaders, I like that as well, and we need all hands on deck. And the idea of a sprint, I have mixed feelings about the idea of a sprint, because this is, the largest revolution since the Industrial Revolution, and this is both a marathon, and now this marathon is getting to be a sprint. So
we need to do the marathon sprinting, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe.
At the same time.
At the same time.
Both at the same time.
So I'm going to go back in reverse order, and I'm going to ask you, David, if that's okay, because I know you have examples, and I was mentioning. We're out of time, so I'm gonna apologize. Just 1 minute each? Okay, brilliant. So 1 minute each to end on collaboration, and 1 minute example of what you're doing in communities, what you're offering communities in order to support your projects.
Okay, I'm going to explain you what we're doing, for example, in Garoña. Garoña, we are an engine for rural development, because we establish population in areas affected by demographic challenge by creating local jobs, direct and indirect, in the different stages of the life cycle of each project, development, construction, operation, and maintenance, and also because it generates wealth by itself in the municipalities near the plants, both through the payment of taxes derived from its activity and through the reactivation or nearby economies. So it's a clear cooperation installation, because they get benefits, we get also benefits. And how we do this? Just with dialogue all the time. What do we need here? How we compensate this environmental effect? And we do this as a protocol, as a methodology in every single plan we built up all over Spain.
In favor or against institutionalizing this cooperation? Would you be in favor or against of having like a protocol that comes from the Just Transition Institute, for example, in Spain?
From a point of view, it is good to be institutionalized, but it depends on every case, because every plant is different. So you should go, when you institutionalize something, you think that all of them are equal and they have the same cost or same...
tailor-made.
Oh, okay.
Like the Just Transition contracts, but for the phase-in.
Yeah.
Yep,
I would say it's okay.
Sonia.
So on collaboration, firstly, absolutely key, and it's multifaceted, right? So our experience in Seville shows that it's about having the technology partner with an NG, it's having the government on board, it's about having that stability in regulation, which I think is important.
We all agree.
We all agree on this. We absolutely agree, and we've seen it in other areas, what happens when we don't have it. So I think it's about multifaceted collaboration to really get the projects off the ground. In terms of just transition, so this is something that's really close to my heart. I think there's a lot of talk about just transition, but not a lot of frameworks in what does that look like. Yeah, and it is very different sector by sector, country by country, and we need to understand the role of the different players. I'm going to give you one example because it's such a huge area. If you look at South Africa, we have got a huge solar plant in Sedibeng for our brewery over there. So you've got an economy that's hugely reliant on coal, and we're moving to renewables. What does that mean for coal workers? So on the one hand, is that a question for me to answer? Because I've got the solar plant, or is it a government question? There are other aspects of just transition which very fairly fall into my area. So when we're talking about agriculture, how we support our farmers towards regenerative practices is something we need to be responsible for. So I think just transition, it's very contextual. So just transition in which industry, and what are the roles and responsibilities of different actors?
Thank you.
I'm afraid we're going to be told off, so I'm going to be really,
We are, yes.
real quick. I really think that all these projects offer hope. Just think on Huelva and Algeciras, two communities heavily invested in fossil that didn't see any future until we announced positive motion in our plans on hydrogen. So hope, but also possibility, because with the development of these new energies, we can attract more industry, more wealth to those communities. So to me, all those projects that we've been discussing offer hope, but also possibility for Spain.
No doubt.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to give the floor to Joan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning or afternoon, literally speaking, but not having had lunch yet. Thank you very much for staying with us so far in this Energy Day at the Spain Pavilion. I was joking with my colleagues right now that we have one of the tricky slots just after lunchtime, but as you know, we have a very, very packed schedule, plenty of content, plenty of very interesting and very applicable content that we wanted to cram into this day. So again, thank you for staying with us, both physically and everyone following us online. And thank you, Lara, and the previous speakers for good examples, reminders of the challenges that we face, but also some of the solutions, some of the opportunities around it. The Secretary of State at the start was very clear and very eloquent about the opportunities in this virtuous circle between industry and the energy transition. The energy transition is an opportunity for industry, and we need a strong industry to drive the energy transition. If we get both things right, this is a social, environmental, economic opportunity for Spain, for Europe, and the whole world. We know, and it's been mentioned before, that this is complex, it's multifaceted. A lot of the tech doesn't exist yet. A lot of it does, but we have challenges in deploying it. We have challenges in financing it. It might be competing for public and private funding. There's challenges in getting the signals right from the public sector, from the private sector as well. Which is why we wanted to dedicate this third section of the panel on industrial decarbonisation on enablers. So what can we do, what opportunities are there from the public, from the private sector, from the technology perspective to actually get things moving. So we have a panel today where we have the perspective from the European regulation. As you know, a lot of what happens in Europe, in Spain, is, from a climate perspective, is driven by European ambition, and the leadership of the European Commission has been impressive, has been outstanding. We're very lucky to have Cristina Lobillo with us today. Additionally, from the sectorial perspective, from the energetics perspective, obviously industry is very intensive in electrical but also thermal energetic demands. The gas sector is absolutely critical when it comes to industry, and therefore the role of decarbonisation in gases and renewable gases is very, very important. And we also have Joan Batalla from Sedigas, the Spanish Gas Association, with us today. We were also expecting somebody from IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency, because they've done very interesting, very deep research into the different technological possibilities, those available and the ones that we still need. If they are able to join us in the session, we'll incorporate them. Otherwise, I do want to recommend that you read the latest reports from IRENA, because the information and the insights there are very, very interesting. So, diving straight in, as I was saying, the leadership from Europe has been, it's clear from the discussions at COP, not just from an ambition perspective, but also from a regulation perspective. And a lot of that has been driven by the Commission. At the end of the day, the Commission puts forward the proposals. Then indeed it's up to the co-legislators to discuss them, to reach agreements. But the leadership, the first seat, the difficult part of starting with a blank page often comes from the Commission. European manufacturing industry, the industrial sector, it has been mentioned before, is responsible for about a fifth of CO2 emissions. So if we want to achieve doubling efficiency, tripling renewables worldwide by the end of the decade, we need to do our homework in Europe as well. So the first question that I wanted to pose to Cristina is, what facilitators are being activated by the EU institutions to facilitate the decarbonisation of European industry, and how we can accelerate this transition linked in particular to industry. So, Cristina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Joanna. Thank you very much for inviting me, for inviting the European Commission, and in particular for organizing one Energy Day in the COP. I had the opportunity to attend many COPs since the Paris Agreement, and I see now that the energy policy has more and more relevance. It's very high in the agenda of the COP, and this makes sense because obviously producing and consuming energy account for 75% of greenhouse gas emission, and this is the reason why we have to act immediately. So, I mean, the question is obviously very broad, but I will try just to focus on three main points. I think that the first message I wanted to convey, and is very much linked to the global pledge, I think 123 countries endorsing the need to triple renewables energy in the world and doubling energy efficiency. I think that this is great. So I attended the ceremony with all leaders in the world, and I think that this somehow marked the direction of the travel when it comes to the future. And by doing so, obviously, we will contribute to phasing out fossil fuels as soon as possible. That is also one of the commitments from the Paris Agreement. What we have done, well, first of all, I don't think that this is a role that that needs to involve the administration, but also industry, citizens. I mean, it's impossible to achieve such an ambitious goals by the administration only, European Union, member state, or local administration. What we have done from the, let's say, administration, and when I talk about administration, I talk about all of us, Commission and Member State and the regional local administration, is just to, first of all, to fix very ambitious targets, and I think that this is the role we have to do. Sometimes we are criticized as European Commission because we fix very ambitious targets, and it's true, they are very ambitious, but I think that we have, again, to mark the direction of the travel, because otherwise it will be difficult to agree on that. I always say that the European Union has a very strong leadership in climate talks, because of two reasons. First, because we have a very high ambition target, but secondly, because we have the legislation in force. And this is different. This is marked a difference with other countries in the world. What we have done now is just to put into force a very broad set of legislation, the so-called Fit for 55. We are now in the very final steps of adoption. Recently, our co-legislator, the Council and the European Parliament, adopted the regulation on the methane, the first regulation ever to reduce methane emission in the European Union, and also our importers. And now we are also working very intensively with both co-legislators to achieve an agreement on the electricity market design, new proposal, and also energy efficiency in buildings. So this is basically the framework, but it's not enough, because this legislation fixed ambitious, but obviously we need now to go one step forward, and we need to see how to help citizens, how to help the European industry to achieve these targets. In the conversation that we have in the Commission with all the industries in Europe, and I have also had the privilege to accompany Executive Vice President Maros Sefcovic to this round table with the companies, and all companies request from the Commission basically three elements. The first one is that the Commission should quantify the cost of the energy transition. So this is the first point, not easy task, by the way. Secondly, the industry say we need some more flexibility on how to achieve the target. And the third one, obviously, you need help from the administration, and the help is also financing. So there are three elements that are not easy at all, indeed, but we need to achieve them together. So the second message, Joan, that I wanted to highlight is that in the European Union, all funding are very much limited to the objectives of the digital and energy transition. So you know that not only our Next Generation Fund, whose Spain is one of the big beneficiaries, but all other funds in the European Union, more than 30%, in particular 32%, has to be dedicated to climate change and energy transition measures. So this is the second point. And the third one, and this is very much linked to the title of this session, is that we need more cooperation. What the energy crisis has shown is that for the Commission, I think that, Joan, with Member States, we have never worked so closely as we did in the transition, and also with the stakeholders. And I think that the objective we have ahead of us is really very, very big, very high in the agenda, and we cannot achieve that if we don't have stronger cooperation with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cristina. Indeed, very ambitious targets, which Spain has often participated in those debates, and we share the importance of setting, obviously, ambitious targets that help drive that vision. In the context of the COP, obviously, with that final goal of phasing out fossil fuels altogether, and then translating that into specific regulatory measures to help out. Thinking about those ambitious targets, as you all know, Spain published a revised version of the NECP, our Energy and Climate Plan, early this year. One of the increases in ambition that the Secretary of State explained earlier was a good increase in renewable gases. Both biogas and renewable hydrogen have seen an increase in ambition in the revised draft. It is still a draft that is still open to participation, but at least the message is there. So something that we want to know from the gas industry in Spain is, Joan, what is the potential of renewable gases for this net zero roadmap, but also following up from what Cristina was saying, not only what is the potential, what are the enablers that we still miss, that still are not there to actually achieve that potential?
Thank you, Joan. Let me start thanking the Ministry for Ecological Transition for its kind invitation to participate in this relevant event, to talk about the industry, to talk about the decarbonisation process, to talk about the role of the renewable gases. You were mentioning before the relevance of the industry in terms of greenhouse emissions. Let me say that the industrial sector for the last decades has been improving its efforts in order to reduce CO2 emissions, to reduce its energy consumption, improving energy intensity, CO2 intensity. But it is enough. We have to go further in the decarbonization of the industrial sector. It is a huge challenge, but for me the most relevant challenge is to be able to do this process of decarbonization, taking benefits of the opportunity, of the economic opportunities, and without losing competitiveness in a global market. And in this process of decarbonization, green molecules, renewable gases will play a relevant role. Just some figures about the final energy consumption of the industrial sector. With the last data, electricity is around 32% of final energy consumption, natural gas 43%, coal 11%, and renewable energies around 9% of final energy consumption. So the first message is, obviously, and it has been said in the previous roundtables, industrial sector has its own characteristics. The decarbonization process of the industrial sector is complex, and considering its complexity, considering these energy patterns in the industrial sector, it will be required all decarbonization opportunities, and renewable gases, green molecule will be an opportunity. In Spain, just answering your question, European Commission recognized the potential of the renewable gases in Spain. In terms of biomethane, European Commission considers that we are one of the 3 most relevant countries considering its potential. The relevance of the primary sector in Spain gives us an opportunity to decarbonize the end user consumption, the industrial consumption, thanks to biomethane. A circular economy solution that also, and for me it's also a relevant, a very important aspect, solution that allows us to decarbonize the industrial sector but generates economic and job opportunities in the rural areas. An aspect that is extremely relevant considering that we need a just and fair transition. In terms of hydrogen, the European Commission considers that we are one of the most relevant countries, leading countries in terms of potential for production of renewable hydrogen. Just in terms of projects, this morning we have shared relevant projects that they are a reality at the moment, but in a global context, Spain accounts for half of the Europeans' projects in terms of hydrogen renewable. So a huge potential, the second message, a huge potential in terms of renewable gases, and a big opportunity, and also considering the existing infrastructure. This morning it has been said, and I completely agree, that the transition will not be able without the transmission. I completely agree with that. Let me say that in the case of the natural gas, the decarbonization process, the transition, the energy transition will be possible thanks to the existing infrastructure, given that it's possible to connect supply and demand projects in terms of biomethane or of hydrogen, considering the resilient and modern existing natural gas infrastructure.
Thank you very much for that, Joan. We have to start shortening the session as the time goes by. We have about 5 to 10 minutes left. Something else we wanted to touch upon in this connection between energy and industry is the other side of the coin. How do we ensure that we have a strong industrial base to ensure that the energy transition can continue? We had a panel earlier specifically on resilient EU and how we can strengthen our strategic autonomy. And one of the frameworks that has been very important in this debate has been the Net Zero Industry Act, which again connects industry and the energy transition. So my next question for Cristina is, how can the Next Zero Industry Act, or what is the expectation of the Commission, help to connect developers to European value chains? How can we ensure that when developers, as we heard earlier, ask of their suppliers, I want equipment, I want components manufactured in Europe, that can be a reality and that is something we can incentivize?
Thank you, Joan. This is a question that is rather a reflection that we had to do all together. But I would like to start with a figure that the International Energy Agency put forward in the Net Zero Roadmap report. According to them, the global market for key mass manufactured net zero technologies is set to triple by 2030. And this will imply an average of 600 billion per year for that. And in the European Union, we don't have the leadership now in these new technologies. As you all know, most of these technologies today come from China and other Asian countries. So, I think that the net zero act industry is one of the first step that the European Union we need to do in this direction. But in our view, the Net Zero Industry Act is just somehow frames the legislation that will have to be produced in the future. We think that we need 4 main elements to make it happen, but also provided that obviously we need to attract also the private investment. But the 4 elements are, the first one, we need an appropriate regulatory framework for the net zero definition. So this is the first point that the European Union needs to reflect and to work on. The second is we need to ensure a faster access to funding. This is also very important because it's not, sometimes we see very high figures of funding and then it's not so easy to have access to these fundings. The third element, we need also to put forward measures to enhance skills. We don't have the labor skills that are needed for this net zero industry in the future. And finally, and very important, we need to enhance our trade agenda. I'm saying that because here is the magic word, critical minerals. What will we do when just to be able to have all these critical minerals that are needed for the transition? What we are doing so far is somehow to expand our international outreach with all countries in the world. We are signing MOUs just to be able to have more, let's say, possibilities, more market access and buying these critical minerals to be traded to the European Union. But obviously, most of these critical minerals are placed in countries, again, like China and others, whose access is not so easy. So I think that these are the 4 main elements that are very well reflected in the Green Deal Industrial Plan. And now we need to work on the legislation and how to make it happen. But I don't want to be or to give somehow a negative idea. I think that, or pessimistic idea. I think that we have done in the European Union so far is quite optimistic, and we have reason to believe that we can manage. This morning, Sarah Axen, the Secretary of State for Energy in Spain, she said that in Spain you have more than 60% of the electricity you produce come from renewables. In the European Union, the figure is 39%. So it's already, I would say, a positive figure. And also from 2021 to 2022, the installed capacity of both photovoltaics and winds in the European Union increased by 50%. So this means that we are moving very fast in the European Union with the technologies that are needed to produce the electricity and the clean energies that we need for that. So, I don't have I would say, a complete answer to that, but I think that the Net Zero Industry Act set the very clear basis to develop that in the future. We are in a year of political change in Europe, so we'll have a new European Parliament by June. We'll have a new Commission. We don't know if we'll have a new president or not, but in any case, we'll have to start a new process. And so it's a year, and always the new Commission also set a plan. And I cannot prejudge what the next Commission will do, but I am almost convinced that competitiveness will be of the European industry, and affordable energy to consumer will be maybe the two main drivers for the next Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cristina. And to finish off, in fact, two words in the very last sentence by Cristina are a good link to what I was going to ask. Because indeed what we have been hearing in the whole session, and in fact in the whole COP, especially by the business sector, is that the energy transition needs to be competitive. It needs to make business sense for private capital to be able to be invested in the transition. So we need to find technologies that are cost competitive, and we need to find the financing mechanisms to be able to finance it. So we heard about the huge potential of renewable gases in Spain, both biogas and renewable hydrogen. So what is the situation in terms of competitiveness? What are the finance alternatives? Who has to pay, and how do we pay for these technologies, and how do we ensure that the financing is there?
It's a good question. Obviously, when talking about the competitiveness, we have different levels of maturity in considering these technologies. For me, the more relevant aspect is to continue with the industrial policy, trying to incorporate push and pull effects. It is extremely relevant to scale up the projects, to scale up the technologies. Here it will be relevant the investment in innovation and development in order to be able to have these technologies at competitive cost as soon as possible. But on the other side, Carlos in the roundtable before was talking about the off-takers. Obviously, it is required to cover the gap that is existing at the moment, considering the extra costs associated with the production of this renewable gas, especially renewable hydrogen. So it is required a combination of policies just trying to stimulate the demand and at the same time to reduce and abate the costs associated with these technologies.
So thank you very much for this. Unfortunately, we are out of time, and we're running into your lunch break. So I would just like to finish the session here, thanking Joan and Cristina for your participation. To everyone in the room and following us online, we're having a lunch break now until 2:45 when the Energy Day continues with something that again was mentioned earlier, which is that just transition. Hopefully we can share some experiences from Spain and some of the stakeholders. Thank you very much for following us.